This is Defiance Daily Dispatches for the Defiant. It is Thursday, June 25th. Welcome to the program, my friends. If you're watching instead of listening, you're saying, what hat are you wearing today, Miles? Well, I'm glad that you asked. This is my undo Trump hat. If you are a Mac user, you'll know that this is the command symbol and Z. Command Z is undo. Maybe a little bit nerdy for some of you. Some of you may also say, that's awesome. Anyway, that's an undo Trump hat. You can get this one at defiance.org. We don't sell merch to get rich. We sell merch to do things to defy Donald Trump. Every single penny of merch we sell on defiance.org goes back to fighting against his corruption and the actions that we announce every week. So take a look at defiance.org/swag. Grab yourself one of those defiance.org hats Xander and I wear every day. Grab one of these undo Trump hats. And, wear it with pride, knowing that it's funding a lawsuit against Donald Trump, it's funding the protection of whistleblowers, or it's funding something like we announced yesterday, which is the fact that we're going to produce a documentary before the midterms on Donald Trump's corruption and make it free and available to everyone around the country. It will be directed by Dan Partland, an Emmy award-winning producer. It will be produced by Art Horan, who created the movie The Usual Suspects, and it will be distributed by us, defiance.org. So go check that out. And if you want to host a watch party, go to defiance.org/watch party. These are the things we do at the Club for Courageous Americans. All right, enough of that. Please make sure you're liking and sharing and subscribing to what we do because it spreads the defiance around this country. And today, let's talk about why that defiance is so necessary. This was a big news day, folks, and there's going to be a lot to cover. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court's immigration rulings. We're going to talk about what's to come on the Supreme Court docket that could affect Donald Trump's presidency and the rest of our lives. And we're going to talk about how Donald Trump doesn't care about bipartisan efforts to make your life affordable. And we're going to talk about all of it today with my friend and occasional co-host, Maritza, who I think is with us. The incredible Maritza's here. Sorry,
Hi,
Xander,
guys.
you're out today. It's me and Maritza, which means this is going to be a fun ride. I hope Xander's in his car somewhere listening to this, Maritza, and having big time FOMO. He should.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to throw shade at Xander. It's always fun when we're all together. But yeah, he should have FOMO because where is he? Like, he should be here.
Yeah.
I do need to call you out, though. Are you really going to steal? You're going to steal the hat thing, the hat shtick that I do on my show with John Tester? Can you see what hat? I guess I'm going to have to get him one of these undo Trump hats and have this be like a crossover hat event.
You know what we need to do? We need to create even more synergy between defiance.org and Grounded. I'm not revealing any secret conversations happening here. I'm having the conversation with Maritza live. How do we merge Grounded and Defiance? Anyway, put a pin in that. We can talk about it.
We need to do that. We absolutely need to do that.
Well, listen, my friend, you read the news voraciously like I do. We've all been waiting for these Supreme Court decisions to come down. This was a big day on that front. The Supreme Court handed Donald Trump 2 major immigration victories. And right up top, these decisions will obviously have devastating consequences for hundreds of thousands of people. There's no doubt about that. But they'll affect the rest of us too. And we're going to talk about that today. And I want to take a moment to explain, because capitalism seems to be a common language in this country. Okay, so let me lay it to you this way. When you remove hundreds of thousands of people who've spent years building their lives here, which is what one of these Supreme Court decisions allows to happen, people who've been raising families here, people who've been paying taxes here, people who've been working in industries America is already struggling to staff, then those consequences don't just have to do with the border and immigration. They have to do with all of you. They have to do with all of us. They have to do with our lives, the products on our store shelves, who's staffing our hospitals and nursing homes and hotels and restaurants, and our local economies. Which brings us to that first ruling. The Supreme Court has cleared the way for the Trump administration to end what is known as temporary protected status for roughly 350,000 people in this country, including Haitians and several thousand from Syria. As a reminder, the U.S. State Department still has a level 4 do not travel advisory for both Haiti and Syria. Let me break this down for you folks. Temporary protected status sounds like a big bureaucratic word. It is. It's a big bureaucratic program. TPS basically just means if someone comes here from a country that is hell, they can stay here until that country is no longer hell. This has existed in U.S. law for decades. Presidents of both parties have respected it. Donald Trump is trying to take 350,000 people who escaped from hell and send them back into hell, right? And Maurice, it's called temporary protected status because the idea is that when those countries are no longer too dangerous to go to, the people can go back. But remember what I just said, the U.S. State Department still has a do not travel advisory for these places. These are not safe to go to anymore. They're certainly not safe to relocate to and live at. I know this very, very well. When I was in the first Trump administration, Stephen Miller, he would call me like a desperate high school girlfriend almost every day, begging us to end temporary protected status for everyone, right? Stephen didn't care if people were in this country fleeing violence and persecution. He'd say, end the programs, send them all back. I'm sorry, Stephen Miller. That's not what the law says. The law says that we're protecting these people from going back to dangerous countries until it improves. The administration took this all the way up to the high court, Maritza, and basically the high court said, let Donald Trump do what he wants. I want to get your reaction to that first before we go on.
Well, my first reaction is, oh my gosh, Stephen Miller would call you all the time. That's, whoa.
One of the worst parts of the job. One of the worst parts of the job. I've held off about a lot of that. I've gone very easy on Stephen. He has no damn idea how bad it could get for him. I've gone very easy on him because my focus has been on Donald Trump, but I'll leave that there for the moment.
Okay. So I wish Xander were here for this conversation because we've had this conversation with Xander before. He's done so much work, helping migrants, helping people who are trying to flee their dangerous homes, and really talking about what a decision that is, that the very best choice or option for so many of these people that on a given day is to take a very, very dangerous journey with no guarantee of safety, food, shelter, water on the other side of that journey. And that's better for them than staying where they are. And I will tell you, Miles, I did a special from Springfield, Ohio in the fall of 2024 when I was on Scripps News. And it was after that debate where we saw Donald Trump do his incredibly unhinged, they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs thing. And I was in Philadelphia for that debate, and that line came out, and everybody in the room, I was with the CNN team and the Scripps News team, and we were all we couldn't believe he said that. What are they saying? Well, his followers just descended onto Springfield, Ohio. They called in threats. They terrorized this community. And so we went there and we talked to pastors, business owners, people on the ground who are from Springfield, who were not from Haiti, people on the ground who were from Haiti. And this was just a community in terror. We had a pastor who was going to do an interview with us, and he backed out at the last minute because he was getting so many death threats for helping these people in this community. And so when I saw this news today, I immediately went to this little girl who I met there, the sweetest little girl, and I just hugged her and held her, and she was so loving, and she was too little to know what was facing her back home, but her mom was terrified. Her mom was terrified about what would happen if they were sent back. And now we have all of these people wondering what's going to happen. How fast will this transpire? What is next for me? Are we going to be deported? And my prediction is that we are going to see hell play out again on the streets of more of our American cities.
Well, I'm glad, Maritza, that you mentioned Ohio, because Springfield, Ohio is going to be ground zero for a decision like this. When the administration made that decision today and said the administration can move forward with sending people back who are here on temporary protected status, that's one of those places that knew right away it would be hit very hard. In fact, today, Republican governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, said that ending TPS is not in the best interest of the United States or Ohio. And he was thinking about Springfield when he said that. According to the Ohio Capital Journal, Haitian immigrants helped reverse the decline of that city, adding more than 10,000 workers to the local economy. In fact, city leaders now estimate losing them would erase roughly $300 million in annual spending and cost the region more than $400 million overall. And Haitian leaders in Springfield want one thing to be known, that they are not in the United States for a free ride. They are here because they have to be. I want to play this clip because WBNS spoke to the executive director of the Springfield Haitian Support Group, and he had this to say.
Haitian also attached to the country. So we are here just for safety reason and to continue to work to find a better opportunity. But many of us would be willing to get back home if the country was going back on track.
Now, he said during a focus group recently, there was an overwhelming consensus among the Haitians in Springfield was that they would go back to Haiti if it were safe to do so.
Yeah, Maritza, I think this is something we have to foot stomp. People need to understand.
Yeah.
We are not talking about illegal immigration anymore. This is not illegal immigration. These are legal immigrants here on a legal program with lawful visas to be here to protect them from places where there is kidnap, murder, terrorism, violence. Like, that's why this program exists. But if you don't care about that, right? If you don't care about the hundreds of thousands of people that are now being sent back, in some cases to their demise, even potentially to their deaths, then care about yourself, because all across America, it's not just Springfield, Ohio, everyone listening to my voice right now who's here in the United States, everyone will be affected economically by this. Communities around you will get gutted. Things will get more expensive. Workers won't be able to fill jobs. You're about to get screwed because the Trump administration so feverishly pursued this agenda. And I don't want to lay it just at Stephen Miller's feet, Maritza. I'm going to put it where it belongs, which is at the president's feet. Let me give you an example of how much this sociopath cared about deporting people here under temporary protected status. There was a day in November of 2017 when North Korea fired a ballistic missile. And whenever North Korea was firing a ballistic missile, that scared us, because anytime it could be not a test, it could be the real thing, right? It could be a nuclear weapon coming towards the United States. And in November of 2017, Donald Trump was in the middle of using one of these things to tweet chaos into North Korea, right? He was going to the brink with Kim Jong-un. So this missile launches. We're a little freaked out at the Department of Homeland Security. We're a little edgy. We're worried. That could be the big one. Well, Donald Trump calls as we're monitoring the situation, right? He calls the acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Elaine Duke. You would think he wants to call to talk about the nuclear dangers from North Korea. You want to know what he called about, Maritza, in the middle of a potential crisis with North Korea? He called to bitch to the secretary about why she hadn't deported hundreds of thousands of these people, specifically Haitians. Temporary protected. We're in the middle of a potential, it wasn't a nuclear conflict, but you got to worry every time these missiles fire off, and the president doesn't care. He's not even thinking about that. He's calling his Secretary of Homeland Security, who should be monitoring that situation, protecting American lives, and saying, get these Haitians out of here. That's the path this man is.
Yeah, I mean, look at what he's doing now. I mean, how many... We're in a war with Iran, and he couldn't go to his son's wedding because of that war, but he has plenty of time to attend multiple UFC fights. He's got so much time to worry about the reflecting pool and the liner that's coming up, you know, and trying to blame it on a vandal with a box cutter when people can't afford their lives, when we are still in a war, when, I mean, you name it, the list goes on. So no, I'm not terribly surprised that he wasn't concerned about North Korea and more concerned about the Haitians, but he's just, I mean, I know we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff, but he fixates on these things, and he cannot have a loss, or what he perceives to be a loss. So I think, you know, I was just about to look, because if my memory serves, and Miles, you'll probably be able to correct me if I'm wrong here, but when we talk about TPS, and I did this reporting on temporary protected status, like it's a designated time frame when people come here and they're designated as temporary protected status. And then the administrations can extend that period, extend that time frame. And it had been extended for these Haitians. And I believe that the president himself extended it at one point in his first term. Am I remembering that correctly?
Because I got him to. Because we went to the White House and they said, rescind it. Send these people back. The thing that you're seeing happen right now. And we said, look, anyone can pull up the law right now. Anyone can pull up the law. The standard we had to assess was, is it safe for them to go home? There's a very easy standard for our people at DHS to give us an answer to. It didn't take a ton of research. We had them do the research. We had them compile reams of information to justify it. But you could have just asked me that way. Is Haiti safe for hundreds of thousands of people to go back to? And my answer would be, are you effing crazy? Of course it's not. Is Syria safe for them to go back to? As the bombing's happening, at that point in time, as the chemical attacks were happening? No, it's not actually safe for them to go back to. As we noted earlier, our own State Department says it's not safe to go back to. Yet the Supreme Court capitulated today to Donald Trump on this. And I just want to push one more time for folks the economic impact this has on you, because you may not be getting sent back to Haiti or Syria. But according to forward.us, they contribute nearly $6 billion to the American economy every year and pay $1.6 billion in federal, state, and local taxes. Almost enough money in federal, state, and local taxes for a Donald J. Trump slush fund. Thank goodness that wasn't put into effect. Hopefully that money is going towards things that matter. Let me give you another example. A senior living facility in Florida says it's already spent $600,000 preparing for the possibility of losing Haitian workers who care for elderly residents every single day. Another example, one hotel company says nearly 30% of its workforce is Haitian TPS holders. There's a zillion examples of this. If these folks are forced to leave the country, which it now appears they will be, these companies are going to have to increase prices. Okay, you may not see it. I'm telling you right now, it's going to happen to you everywhere. You're going to pay a couple more bucks at this hotel. You're going to pay a couple $1,000 more to put Granny in this nursing home. Your life gets worse, gets harder, because Trump wants to take these hardworking, patriotic, tax-paying people, rip them out of the country, send them back to dangerous places. It is stupid. It is completely stupid. And these jobs don't disappear, of course. That's another thing here. The demand for workers doesn't disappear, but the protections do. A South Carolina immigration attorney, a guy named Ben Benillas, who represents victims of labor trafficking, warned about this. He warned that stripping people of legal work authorization while employers still need workers creates the perfect conditions for exploitation. He wrote this, quote, "This will worsen labor trafficking, forced labor, debt bondage, and documented servitude." In other words, if people are desperate enough, they will still work. The only difference is they'll be doing it with fewer rights. They'll be doing it illegally. They'll be doing it in a gray zone. They'll be doing it without protections, and they'll be doing it with far fewer people looking out for them. And even Republicans are warning this whole thing is a catastrophic mistake. I want to tell you what Congressman Mike Lawler had to say. He's a Republican in New York, who I think both of us have interacted with a good bit, Maritza. And he said, roughly a third of Haitian TPS holders work in healthcare systems, and warned that ending the program now would create a crisis in hospitals and those nursing homes that we mentioned, and in elder care. This is not just about these folks. People need to realize the ripple effects here are seismic.
They're seismic, and this is at a time when we're already seeing, I mean, I live in rural America, right? We already see staffing shortages in these kinds of facilities and issues with this. And like you mentioned, Miles, I mean, when I went to Springfield and was on the ground in Springfield, so many people told me that that community had been struggling for a long time, and that the influx of Haitian migrants helped revitalize that community, because suddenly they could fill these jobs jobs that they couldn't fill before. I interviewed a woman who started her own beauty company, you know, a storefront that sold beauty supplies. They opened jobs they for other people. Opened businesses, gave back into the community, became part of the community. And when you were on the ground there, it wasn't this chaotic hellhole that the president and then VP nominee JD Vance was describing. But they're so effective at painting a picture with lies that and people don't bother to fact check them. So you know, one of the things I was reading when I was reading about this morning is that there is a possibility for a bill through Congress. And I believe Senator Ed Markey introduced a bill to preserve this legal status. There's a similar measure through the House. And so if we can do anything together collectively, call your delegation, call your representatives, call your senators, and explain why this is so important. Not, you know, again, like not just for these people who might be deported back to Haiti now, and I'm sure are suddenly living in extreme fear, but because of all of the reasons Miles just laid out. And unfortunately, as we've seen, so many people only care when it does affect their checkbook, when it does affect their bank account. And so if that's what it takes to get you to care, you know, that's what it takes. But this will affect so many people across the country. And I have a very scary premonition that we are going to see some really bad things play out in places like Springfield, Ohio.
Well, we don't need any more reason to know why voting matters, but I want to keep people from feeling totally despondent about this, because Donald Trump is not going to be president forever. As much as he wants to self-style as an eternal despot, nature will come for him like it will come for all of us. His term will end. Whatever happens, he's not in the presidency forever. The Supreme Court decision, though, affirms that whoever is in the Oval Office now has a lot more power when it comes to this. So all the more reason why we need someone who's not a guy that wears his heartlessness on his sleeve like Donald Trump in the Oval Office. People who will make smart decisions about temporary protective status that don't detonate the national economy, that don't throw hundreds of thousands of people into danger. So all the more reason why it's important we vote the way that we need to. And that also leads us to the other Supreme Court ruling from today, which is the court found 6-3 in a ruling that the Trump administration could revive its policy of turning away asylum seekers at the southern border before they step onto U.S. soil. This is a policy called metering. Let me explain this to you folks very quickly. Our immigration system's broken, okay? But what the law of the land is this. If you show up at the southern border and you say, hi, I'm here fleeing violence and persecution, I'm here claiming asylum, you have a right under the law, whether people like it or not, you have a right under the law to have your case heard by a judge. Are you actually fleeing asylum or persecution? Great. Then a judge says, yep, your case qualifies. You can be here as an asylum seeker in the United States and get legal status. If they find, nope, you're lying, or you're not actually coming from a place where you fear for your life, you get sent home. That's how the system works. Now, unfortunately, the system is so backlogged, it takes 5 to 10 years to get a judge to see, right? That's the problem here. You should get an answer in a week or two. That's how the system should work, right? So when you hear about immigration reform, one of the biggest things people are talking about is let's increase the court capacity. So when someone comes here and says, I am here to get asylum, they get an answer in a week or two. They don't spend 5 to 10 years building a family, working in the United States, only for a judge to say, oh, actually, on second thought, we don't think your case counts. That's shitty. That's wrong. Don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. That's a very dumb system. But right now, the way the system works is people have a right to be heard, and it's our problem if the courts can't hear that quickly. So enter this term metering. In the first Trump administration, I witnessed this tangentially. Down the hall, the people who were working on immigration before I was touching those issues came up with this very clever idea, which is, well, if they reach the U.S. border and reaching the U.S. border allows them to claim asylum, what if we just say our facilities are too full? And we have to meter. We can only take 5 people a day, 10 people a day, 20 people a day because we can't take that many. What if we just meter them This was just a clever use of language to say, we're going to pretend they haven't reached the US border and make them wait on the other side. The Supreme Court today agreed with this silly little piece of logic, this metering, as if suddenly these processing facilities where we've been able to let thousands in safely can only handle a few dozen on any given day. This is a gimmick, and the Supreme Court upheld this gimmick today to let the metering continue. The conservative majority ruled that someone has not legally arrived in the United States until they physically crossed that border. Now, Justice Sonia Sotomayor disagreed. She wrote that the court had effectively allowed the administration to, quote, slam the door shut on all who are fleeing persecution, despite the asylum system that Congress created. This is potentially even more significant than TPS, because the reason in the second Trump administration you have not seen this big debate about thousands of people flowing across the border is because, in my view, the administration has illegally kept people from claiming asylum at the border. I don't like how broken the system is, but in my view, only Congress could fix that. Yet today, the Supreme Court majority said, no, we'll go along with this rabbit in a hat magic trick that the administration wants to do by claiming they can only take so many people in at once. They've got to meter them, which has effectively allowed the administration to meter places down to zero and say, sorry, we can't take anyone today. You can't claim asylum.
You know, I just want to remind people again that there was a bill in 2024, a bipartisan immigration bill, a border bill that had bipartisan support and was ready to go through until Donald Trump, the then candidate, said no to the Republicans. We don't want you to work on this. We don't want you to do this because this is something I'm going to run on. I don't want you to come up with a solution. And I think it's really, really important to remember that when we're talking about all of these things, whether it's TPS, whether it's about this metering, the Supreme Court decision today, that as much as we talk and complain and bitch about Congress not doing its work, there have been moments when they have tried and come through. And I know we're going to talk about another one in a little bit here, Miles. And then the president says, well, that doesn't fit my agenda. Or then candidate Trump says that doesn't fit my agenda. And it's not actually, at the end of the day, it just doesn't really seem to be about actually helping anybody. It doesn't really seem to be about actually putting through policy or making things better, because if you make it better, what the hell is he going to run on?
That's absolutely right. And I'll also add that, and we can talk about this later, there's a number of very important decisions still yet to come down from the Supreme Court. We're waiting on decisions related to Donald Trump's birthright citizenship executive order, which Defiance.org has helped fund the legislation against that very obviously unconstitutional order. I think that will go against the Trump administration. A number of other very important ones that we are waiting on. And of course, we'll talk about a little bit later in the program today, another very, very important decision that is in front of the courts, which is tied to some pretty wacky stuff that the administration is trying to do to take away your right to vote and decide who gets to vote and who doesn't. And I just want to tease that for a second for folks, because you've seen this in the news, and I'm worried that your eyes have glazed over. I actually think this is one of the biggest stories of the second Trump administration. I would call it in the top 5 stories of the second Trump administration, is that they are trying to push through federal rules to allow the Postmaster General, see, you're already bored. You heard me mention the post office, to allow the Postmaster General to decide if your mail-in ballot gets delivered to your state or not. Okay, a lot of you listening vote by mail-in ballot. I do here in Virginia. A lot of the time, if I'm not around or I'm traveling, Donald Trump wants to make it so the postman, the postman's postman, the big boss, gets to decide, does your mail-in ballot get delivered? Listen, folks, that is fascism. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If the president of the United States can tell the Postmaster General, here's what states can have mail-in ballots, here's what's not, that is fundamentally against the Constitution. The Constitution dictates the states decide how voting happens. Donald Trump is taking a federal agency and saying, well, because we process your mail and your ballots, we'll just pluck them out of the mail. This is madness. Historians will talk for decades about how an American president proposed reaching his fat orange fingers in the mailbag and taking out ballots of people he didn't like to manipulate the vote. This is wild. This is happening right now. Thankfully, judges have put this on pause because, you know, if your one job is to swear an oath to the Constitution, it's pretty goddamn difficult to look at that document and say, yeah, the postman can take your right to vote away from you. The hell he can. The hell the postman can take away my right to vote. So thankfully, the courts have stopped that. And mark my words, we're going to be fighting like hell against that. We're working with some of the best organizations out there that are fighting that order. So we'll get to that. There's a lot to say on that front. I want to play you a clip a little bit later. But we have a guest here today who's going to talk with us about another topic where Donald Trump took his silly Florsheim shoes and put them in his mouth this week. And that is the topic of affordability, Maritza. We've talked about these Supreme Court rulings and their impact on the economy, but there's a much more direct way that Donald Trump screwed over Americans this week. And that is on affordability of housing. This week, lawmakers passed what was called the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, one of the biggest housing affordability packages in years. And it was with overwhelming bipartisan support, right? Only a couple of dozen folks opposed it among the 535 members of Congress. Overwhelming support. The bill is meant to speed up construction and to cut red tape and, frankly, just to make it easier to build housing at a time when renters and first-time home buyers are getting crushed. It's a pain in the ass to get all those approvals. Congress was going to swipe away the cobwebs and make it easier to build housing in this country. Not a silver bullet, but a pretty big step. And then Donald Trump stepped in. He showed up on Capitol Hill this week, pissed off that Congress hadn't passed another voter suppression measure called the SAVE Act. He really wants Congress to make it damn near impossible for someone to vote unless they've got their passport or their driver's license, or a married woman who's changed her name, you know, brings a tome of all the different, you know, steps she's taken to validate her name. He showed up mad on Capitol Hill about that and said, you know what? I'm not going to sign this housing bill into law. I'm pissed off. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to sign it. He canceled the signing ceremony on the spot, said he wouldn't sign the bill unless Congress passed his petulant voting restrictions. And even Fox News looked stunned about this. Take a look.
Bill, it was bipartisan, and it was seen as a way that it was going to help out potentially young homebuyers who can't afford it right now. Do you think there's any political risk here in canceling this ceremony just at the behest of the Save America Act? This is something everybody wanted.
Something everybody wanted, Maritza. I don't know where you rate this in the annals of presidential petulance, but this has got to be up there.
It's got to be way up there. And one thing that John Tester constantly reminds me on our show is that we want the president to succeed in some things because it means that we all succeed. He is the president of the United States. And so sometimes, you know, we want there to be successes. We want the war in Iran to stop. We want people to be able to afford houses. And he called this bill of minor importance, Miles. He called this bill of minor importance and said that the Save America Act was number one priority. Well, the Republicans in Congress have been very clear about this. They can't get it through. They're not going to be able to get this through. They don't have the votes. But because he wants to go and throw a fit and throw a temper tantrum, he's going to hold up any other kind of progress to get it done and to do it. I just seems he will berate and bully until he gets his way. And I will say, when I saw this headline yesterday, I actually wrote a few of my friends who are White House correspondents, and I said, please, I would love to see you ask this question. What do you think, Mr. President, about our system of checks and balances? Because it sure seems like he really doesn't believe Congress has any role in this government that we have, because he thinks he can just dictate what bills should be passed, what bills should get their support, what bills shouldn't. And again, he thinks that he has absolute power. And he's basically said that in so many words, Miles.
Well, you know what? We're going to bring in our guest to talk about this because I think politically he has shot himself in the foot on this one big time. Donald Trump has given all of the opponents to his Republican candidates an incredible talking point in this election. And joining us now to talk about that is Maya Rupert. Maya is with us, a political strategist, writer, executive vice president at Blue State, and the third Black woman in American history to run a presidential campaign. Maya, it's fantastic to have you with us today. How you doing?
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I want to ask you a question out of the gate, my friend. So Congress, as we were just talking about, finally seems to have found like something to work on together, something bipartisan, and a pretty important something, affordability. And my question is this where Democrats should be keeping the conversation going in the midterms? Am I right to think that Donald Trump has just handed a crazy talking point to the Democrats that now his party is standing in the way of like the most obvious agreeable thing that Congress should be doing?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that the DNC should make sure that this doesn't constitute an in-kind donation that violates a campaign contribution. This is such a valuable talking point he's just given to everyone who is running for office right now. Everyone knows that affordability is the issue people are talking about because people cannot afford their lives. And rent and mortgage is at the top of that list for people. Regular people are talking about how bad this has gotten. A group of people who cannot seem to come together to agree on anything came together to write a bill that would improve lives for regular people across this country. And the president threw a temper tantrum and decided not to sign it. And that means he is costing people money. It means everyone who is running against a Republican right now should be forcing their opponents to either disagree publicly and strongly with Donald Trump, or they should have to run on the decision not to give this kind of relief to people. It is such an unforced error. And what it shows is, once again, Donald Trump is focused on himself. This is about him. This is not about the future of the Republican Party. It's not about the future of the country. He is doing something that benefits him and only him. And the people in his party have got to make a decision about who they're going to be in this midterm. And I think, look, he is not above punishing the people who disagree with him. So he's really set up a really tough situation for the Republicans who are running. They either have to run on Donald Trump and everything he does, or they need to stand against him and invite his wrath.
Yeah, Maya, you bring up so many good points. And I think, as you were talking, I remembered he called the word affordability a hoax. He said it's a hoax. I mean, this is, and I think it's easy for him to do that because he's not worried about where he's going to sleep tonight. And he's not worried about how he's going to pay his mortgage or his rent. And I'm wondering from you, like if you are writing the next 6 months of messaging here, less than that really, what's the one thing that you think every Democratic candidate or independent candidate running against this agenda needs to say over and over again? What's your number one piece of advice for them to hammer this message home?
I mean, it's exactly that. It's that, I think people are fed up with what they see as two systems, right? There's a system that benefits wealthy and powerful people like Donald Trump. There's a system that the rest of us are living under. There's a different economy. There's a different justice system. All of the issues that people are talking about that are really voters are fed up with, it's about that two-tiered system. Donald Trump is proving that he is not interested in improving the system for everyone. This would have been a huge benefit for a lot of people. And I think that's what it is. I think over and over again, because at its core, the affordability message, honestly, conversations around the Epstein file, there's so many things right now that are really about, there should be one set of rules. And most of us are comfortable with that and want to play by one set of rules. And the people who are fighting to make sure that there are two different systems are people are done. They're fed up, and it's time for those people to be out of power.
I got to say, we've seen a a lot of success lately from these younger, more populist candidates. Mamdani waved his magic wand and got a lot of his candidates through this week in New York City. There's a populist wave here. I want to know, do you think are we seeing a policy shift here? Is it a communications and messaging shift? Or is there a sort of generational shift inside the Democratic Party on issues like this?
I will say it's definitely not a magic wand, right? I think it's a combination of what you're saying, but it's also a huge amount of work. What Mamdani did, and I think it's, some of this is about, he is, I think, a generational talent when it comes to politics, but he has tapped into something real and it's lasting. And I think it's a combination. I think it's policy. I think people are done with, we've got to get back to normal. We've got to get back to the status quo. If this moment in history has taught us anything, it's that for a lot of voters, normal wasn't working for them. It was so not working for them, they were willing to break the system. So the people that we're seeing winning right now are ones who are saying, I'm not trying to get you back to how it was before. I'm trying to make life better. I don't believe that we should just give up on the idea that people should be able to afford their lives. And I'm going to fight for something new. So it's definitely a policy difference. And I think that some people who want to credit a particularly personable politician or something like that are missing a big piece of this. Voters are responding to policy. It's obviously communications. You can't get people to understand policy without a good message. But at its core, people are responding to ideas that are about making things better. So I even think there are people who wouldn't call themselves democratic socialists or progressives by any stretch who hear affordability and hear somebody saying, your groceries don't have to be this expensive. And you should be at the center of our politics. For a long time, we've measured our politics, our economy, everything we do. I'm trying so hard to.
I gotta say,
no, we have to talk about it.
we got to talk about the cat. I want to know. I've got a question for the cat because
that's fair.
The cat is, first of all, your biggest fan on the planet. It's just like eating up everything that you're saying. My question with the cat is, this is jumping back to an earlier story. Donald Trump says they're eating the cats and the dogs in Ohio. I don't think that's true. I want to know, is your cat worried about immigrants eating it, or because let's hear it straight from the animals themselves.
Are you interested in engaging with that's the thing. She doesn't even want to talk about it.
She's like, that's so stupid. We're not worried about immigrants at all.
That's not real.
I bet your cat is more worried about how the price of cat food is surging because of this president.
Wait, so what's your cat's name? I need to know your cat's name.
This is Crispin, and she is, cats weirdly, between the ridiculous comments that people were eating cats and dogs, JD Vance saying that crazy cat ladies are running the country and that women without kids who only have cats don't have enough stake in the future. Cats have played a shocking role in politics in the last few years, and so I feel like my cats have really leaned into their role as as political strategists.
I think it's great. Yeah. And frankly, I think we could use some more cat ladies running the country. I'm just going to say that. Before you go, though, Maya, I want to hear more about your book. You have a newish book out. So tell us a little bit about it and what our viewers and listeners can learn from it.
Absolutely. It's called The Real Ones, How to Disrupt the Hidden Ways That Racism Makes Us Less Authentic. And the book really talks about the concept of authenticity and how often it operates as a privilege that is not easily accessible for everyone. One of the first things we ever tell candidates who are going to run for office is what? We tell them voters want authentic leaders. You need to be authentic. But the way that we determine whether people seem authentic very often has more to do with us and our own biases than with anything they are doing. So we very often see that candidates of color, that women of any race have a harder time proving authenticity. When it sort of remains this undefined concept that anybody is able to basically say, I know it when I see it. So what the book really is about trying to get us to a concept of authenticity that is more accessible to more people. Because it's not that authenticity is a bad thing. It's that in a lot of ways, it's so undefined that it can mean anything. When something can mean anything and it's that important, a lot of bias has opportunity to seep in, and it winds up hurting our ability to elect the leaders that we need.
Maya Rupert, I hope folks go pick up the book. Tell them where they can follow you on social media, where they can buy the book. Give the people the information they demand.
Absolutely. The book is available now. It came out in February, so it is available bookstores. You can order online. You can find it in real life. You can follow me. I am Maya Rupert on X, Maya.Rupert on Instagram, Facebook. I'm around a lot. And you can also go straight to my website, which is mayarupert.com, and see everything that is going on, including upcoming events where I'll be talking about the book.
And does Crispin run social media handles? Does she have an Insta?
She doesn't. I've considered it for a while. She sometimes makes appearances on mine though. So tune in.
Oh, good.
And you'll get to
I just
see
heard her. Wait, we do have one more request. People want to see her face. Is there any way?
Let's see here.
Some parents are worried about showing their kids' faces. What's up, Crispin? The pro-democracy cat. Crispin, the pro-democracy cat, who will soon have that Instagram handle. Stay tuned. Might be kind of a long one. We'll figure it out. Maya, thank you so much for being with us. We hope you will join us again. Thank you for everything you're doing in this fight, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Maya.
Bye-bye.
Maritza, we go now to our final segment of the day and every day, which is who is joining the defiance in this country? We ask this question every day so that we can point to one of the many millions of people who are demonstrating courage in this moment of crackdown. And today we're heading over to the great city of Chicago, which, yes, the slogan of Chicago once was, I don't know if it still was, the great American city. So let me just put a plug in for the thing people call the Windy City, but they should just call it the great American city. Anyway, neither here nor there. We're going to go to Chicago to meet Michael Fager, a 77-year-old social justice activist and lifelong community organizer, and, by the way, a Catholic priest who absolutely took Donald Trump to church last weekend during a city hall meeting. I want you to take a look.
This morning on the news that Donald Trump said he wants to send people who'll solve the gun violence in a month. First of all, the man lies every day. The reflecting poll was good for 50 years, and Iran was going to be solved in a month. Shut up, Donald. Just send money and restore the money you took away from gun violence prevention for the city of Chicago and across this country. Give the money back now.
Wow! Maritza, this guy literally was trained to love and forgive anyone, and even he was like, yeah, no, this Trump guy sucks.
Just shut up. Just shut up, Donald. I want to bring him on the show. I would really like to talk to this priest.
Well, we happen to have some deep connections across the city of Chicago, including on our production team. So maybe Father Flager, who's been out there doing God's work on the streets of Chicago, will come onto the program. Just putting that out there. Wink, nod.
I wonder, do you think he knows? I bet he knows the Pope. I bet he knows the Pope.
I think we're just one step away from the Pope coming on Defiance Daily.
Oh, yes. Let's manifest that.
I mean, I know Colbert couldn't get him, but I feel pretty confident that we can land the Pope. I'm just going to go search for Zoom.
I just feel like this whole program has kind of kept pulling me that direction because right before, you guys can't see Mercedes, but she is wearing a necklace, and I wouldn't have noticed this, but Megan,
she was a Catholic priest.
Megan pointed it out, and it does look. There's this little like white thing, and it does look like a collar. And now we have this priest in Chicago. I think it's, and we talked about the religious leaders in Springfield, Ohio. I think that all signs are pointing to getting the Pope on Defiance. I am
only half joking. I am willing to convert to Catholicism if the Pope comes on this show. I'm non-denominational right now, so really it's just like, choosing an option. You should think about it.
I don't know if that's how he works. I don't know if he's that transactional.
It's not how it works.
I don't think that's
a lot of my fellow Christians right now are like, it's a little bit it's a little bit more involved than just, but look, I'll do it for you, Pope, if you come on this program. But in the meantime, we'll say to Father Flagger, welcome to the Defiance, good sir, and thank you for your courage. So wonderful to see him. Maritza, I think we've got time to take some questions from defiance.org members. And as we welcome those, folks, feel free to drop your questions in. We called the defiance.org members Defiance. That may come as a surprise to some of those members because we said we weren't going to. Nah, we're going to now. It's a great term. We're going to put out t-shirts. Defy ants, like little ants. That's because like one individually, I don't know what's the impact, but together, you know, we're going to take over the world. So we've got questions from some of our Defy ants. And Pouty Sum 8 says, Miles, where did you get your hat? Did I miss something? Well,
you did.
I mentioned it at the top of the program. You can get this hat at defiance.org/swag. It is for nerdy Mac users. It is the symbol on your Mac when you want to undo something. You hit Command Z and you can undo something. And so this hat says undo Trump. You see the command and then the Trump Z. It's kind of fun. It's a little bit cheeky. And again, let me reiterate, we don't sell swag on our store to line our pockets. When you buy swag on our store, it funds our efforts to counter Trump's abuses of power. So go buy the Defiance hat, buy shirts, buy this, and wear it around knowing you're literally funding efforts to combat his corruption. Go ahead, Maritza.
There is an opportunity to appeal to a wider audience because not everybody's a Mac user. You could also make one that is Control-Alt. No, not Control-Delete. Is it Control-Z?
Control-Delete.
Control-Z. Control-Delete would shut it down, but Control-Z, you could make one with a control also. So for people who aren't Mac users, you know, you just widen the audience.
We could do that. We could do that. I'm a real reluctant Windows user, but I'm not opposed.
Me too.
I don't want folks to say I'm a bigot. I don't want them coming out being like Miles Taylor's an anti-Windows bigot. I am not. I'm equal opportunity operating system. So yeah, I got a question for you, Maritza, from Kim Sherwood, a Defiant. Hello, Kim. Any thoughts on why or how the Supreme Court seems to be bending in unbelievable and unprecedented ways, presumably for Donald Trump?
Yeah, because elections have consequences. And this is what happens. And so for people who say, well, it doesn't affect me and it doesn't matter who the president is because my life's going to be shitty no matter what. How many times have I heard people say that? Well, guess what? Things can always get a lot shittier. And these decisions coming down, you know, they sprinkle in, like there was one decision today on, it was the executive order on mail ballots, right, Miles? That was a surprise, and that was okay, well, we'll take that win. But Mercedes is saying what? Timeout. What?
I don't think that dropped yet. There is a pending decision about whether the Postmaster General is allowed to let me back up. A decision about whether votes that arrive by mail after Election Day, but that were postmarked by Election Day, can be counted. A lot of people are worried about this.
No,
sorry, I'm coming in.
Voice of God!
A federal judge halted Trump's election executive order. The executive order.
Yeah.
No.
I think that was out of Boston. We had a federal judge, not the Supreme Court, put a pause on Trump's crazy.
Okay.
See, this is how wild it is, folks. There are so many of these things. Let me just say, if I was going to go to 30,000 feet, I would say this. If you're looking for a scorecard, right now, Donald Trump is generally getting his ass kicked on efforts to manipulate the elections by demanding voter rolls from states, by trying to use the postal service to steal your ballots or to stop them from getting counted, generally getting his ass kicked. But there is one that's going to drop soon from the Supreme Court. It could have dropped while we were on the air, but I don't think it did.
No, it didn't. No, you're right.
Which is about whether they can be counted afterwards. This is another crappy thing that's happening, is the U.S. Postal Service put this rule in place earlier this year that says, basically, that if you this is in addition to the Supreme Court ruling, but there's this rule that if you go to the Postal Service and you drop something in the mail, it doesn't necessarily get postmarked for that day. It's basically up to the post office to decide whether it made it in time, it gets postmarked that day, or it gets postmarked the next day. This is in addition to the Supreme Court deciding whether or not your ballot getting mailed in and sent the day of and arriving later counts. This is the Postal Service doing a sneaky little thing and saying, well, even if you drop it in one of those blue boxes on a Tuesday, we may not stamp it as Tuesday. And so folks around the country are being told by voting groups, if you're going to do a mail-in ballot, just make sure you mail it before voting day. Just make sure you mail it before voting day. So
with ample time. But let me apologize. That was a big mistake on my part. I saw that come down, and all of the Supreme Court rulings were coming down at the same time. And this is what happens. It gets overwhelming to follow the news. So my bad. My bad on that. But yes, a federal judge blocked the EO. So that's the thing. You have the Supreme Court, you have these district courts, and they're really at odds. But yeah, I think that what's happening at the Supreme Court, we are seeing that elections have consequences, and it's why it's so important to vote, to be engaged in this process, to vote in people into the Senate who will ask tough questions of future court nominees. Because, you think about all of the people on our Supreme Court right now, and all of the votes that put them there, and how maybe one decision differently could have impacted all of this.
Well, and let me remind folks, you can make a difference here. As Defiance together, you have extraordinary strength. And I think we even came up with a little graphic for the Defiance. There we are. Wow! I believe that was our summer fellow, Megan, who created this remarkable graphic for the Defiance. If you want that on a t-shirt, that may be so much of an inside joke, but we'll do it. I mean, we'll do it. And I think our resident informal graphic designer, Chris, a defiance.org member, a Defiant, could also probably come up with some cheeky swag on that front. So we're working on it. We're working on it, folks. But as Defiance, there is something we can do about this. We're right at the top of the hour. That's all the time we have for today. But let me remind folks, if you're not following Maritza on Substack, if you're not listening to the Grounded podcast with her and Senator John Tester, what are you even doing? What's wrong with you? They are incredible. Why aren't you listening? What's your justification? Make sure to subscribe. They are the greatest. They are patriots. They have terrific people on their program. So in addition to occasionally moonlighting with us, Maritza runs an incredible show over there. So make sure to follow them.
Thank you, Miles. I will plug that I'm actually going up to the farm. I am going to John Tester's farm this weekend, and we are going to do a show live from the farm. This is a first for Grounded. So we would love it if you will join us. We have
at the farm?
A lot of at the farm. Well, yeah, no, come join us at the farm. It'll take you, depending on where you're coming from, probably 4 days and 17 hours to get there. I was supposed to leave 3 days ago.
The other week, Maritza reached out at the last minute. She's like, hey, there's this event happening in Montana. You should come out here. And the logistics seemed daunting. And unfortunately, I had a conflict, but I really wanted to make it out there. But it seems like a challenge.
We're gonna get you out here. We're gonna get you out here, Miles. We need, like, when we talk about this crossover, Grounded Defiance crossover, we need you here. We need Xander here. We're gonna have a big party. Maybe we'll have a big party. We'll go up to the farm. We gotta, I'll talk to John. We'll figure out something fun. There are a lot of really
Xander
fun
haters in this community. I think it's probably,
I don't think so.
I think most people in defiance.org cannot stand him. And we keep trying to fire him. He keeps showing up every day. We don't pay him. We don't do anything. And he just keeps showing up. We deleted all of his accounts. He made new accounts. I'm just kidding. All of those things are not. Xander's a patriot. He's a wonderful guy. And he's one of my greatest friends. We'll take you up on that. We're going to go to Montana. In the meantime, folks, I hope you will also join us tomorrow. Join Maritza in Montana. And also join us tomorrow, because on Fridays on Defiance Daily, we talk about the MAGA losses of the week. And it's going to be a doozy of an episode. I know. There's been a couple of Supreme Court decisions this week that came down in Donald Trump's favor. But back to my scorecard. If you were going to rank this week, it was one of the biggest loser weeks for the Donald J. Trump administration since he came back to power. So that list is going to be long. It's going to be a whopper. And we also have a doozy of a guest with us tomorrow. I don't know if I can say. So we're just gonna leave it there. We'll have an amazing guest with us to walk through those losses of the week. So join us tomorrow live here at 5 p.m. Eastern on Substack, on YouTube, on X, on Instagram. I don't know. We're all over the place. So come join us, watch it tomorrow. And in the meantime, friends, stay loud, stay brave, and stay together, my Defiance. We've got this. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much.